Welcome back to Relay Back. I'm the host, Danger Neff. And today I'm switching things up a little bit, and I kind of want to talk the theory of what WandaVision could basically mean from here. For those of you who don't know, WandaVision is a TV show. Disney Plus has dropped, and it just dropped its biggest episode, episode 5, which has had a lot of payoff, a lot of questions, and where it can basically go kind of from here. So the point of this recording is basically talk about what has happened up to this point. What does that imply for what's going to happen in the rest of the show, and how does that affect the rest of the MCU moving on into the future? So what has happened up to this point? Since episode 1, this show's always been kind of divisive because it has been a slow burn. It's been the pacing's been a little bit off. It started off as a 1950s sitcom, turned into a 1960s sitcom where you get the introduction of Wanda, who was a major part of the Avengers, having seemingly revived her dead husband, Vision, who has died in Avengers Endgame. Questions there, of course. From there, it translated itself into episode 3. You had kind of more, you had seemingly a mole get planted into there again, now going into the 1970s, and you're seeing a lot of kind of pushback, until somebody brings up, oh, didn't you have a brother? And she's like, oh yeah, no, he died, right? And she was very on the nose about this. She was like, oh, didn't he die from Ultron? Which is, died from Age of Ultron, another previous film. And she kicks her out of this whole thing, realizing that she's not part of whatever this is going on. Episode 4, you get a lot of information. First and foremost, you find out that this is all Wanda who has created this hexagonal shape, so it's six-sided. And it's a town. A lot of people are under what seems to be her mind control, as they're able to kind of pinpoint where people are from, which is rather interesting, because that definitely plays a part in what I think is going to happen from here. You also get a lot more information that basically this is all control, that this whole operation's headed by Sword, which is just another shield. And, you start getting more and more and more. Okay. Episode 5 has a big payoff. Episode 5, they seemingly try to make this mission to not only uncover more, but then secretly they try to attack Wanda. You also find out that Wanda attacked the facility that had deconstructed the body of Vision, which is weird. Why did you guys have the body? It just, this in Avengers 1, they had the opportunity to basically arrest Loki for his crimes, right? But Loki's Asgardian, he's too strong, and they decided to give it up to Thor. So why, with a construct that has nothing to do with basically the rest of this world, because it was created by Ultron and super powerful, why did you guys decide to take the body? That is a question I have that I really don't have the answer to. Kind of find out that Sword is being a little sneaky about things, of course, which is actually immensely frustrating because it's hard to root for these guys that keep doing this. And every time they do it, it makes me have this disdain to them. So then you had Wanda basically become attacked from this missile, and she comes out of the hex, like literally rippling out of the hex, and it's just like, is this yours? And kind of throws it at these guys' feet, and then mind controls the guys, very similar to X-Men 1, where they mind control them and point all the guns to the head guy. And she says, I have what I want. This is my world. You guys leave me alone. I leave you alone. That's how this works. But of course, there's a lot of people in that town that's under a lot of duress, distress, and Vision has slowly kind of been uncovering this. As you can tell, that Wanda doesn't have Vision or the children under mind control. It's a little weird. Um, and Vision goes and kind of uncovers this guy, from the mind control, and he talks about how he's in pain, that she's causing us a lot of pain. And seemingly great acting, by the way, because he transitioned from suddenly being, I'm in pain, and he just like transitions into, oh, fine, and starts playing the goofy sitcom character that tends to be what these side characters are. So you find out that they're all that, and Vision kind of confronts Wanda, and they kind of have this confrontation, where it looks like they're going to basically attack each other. And then you hear a knock at the door. And at the knock at the door, earlier in an earlier episode, we talked about how Pietro, who is Wanda's brother, had passed away. Well, at the door, Pietro shows up, but it's a different actor. And the term, when she recasted Pietro, the actor that is actually playing Quicksilver was the Quicksilver from the Fox X-Men movies. So, mind blown. Where is this going to go? Okay. That is what has led us up to here. What does that mean for that's what's happened up to here. What does that mean for now? Well, there's a couple little lines that I think kind of uncover a few things. And I'm sure a couple of videos have found more stuff, but one thing that I kind of found in particular, episode 5 definitely foreshadowed a lot of things. One of the things that they talked about was so first off, I want to before I really get into the foreshadowing, and I'm sorry, I know that's weird. I would kind of want to address some of the questions that are out there, and some of the theories that are out there. And I don't really like some of these theories. For starters, people say that oh, she's under the control of Mephisto. Mephisto is about hell, and yes, he's about control, but he's a contract demon at the end of the day, right? Literal representation of hell. It's how he got Johnny Storm, or Johnny Storm, Johnny. It's how he got Ghost Rider to be a Ghost Rider, right? You will do my bidding, blah 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 blah. He's more about contracts and stuff like that. So unless something happened where Wanda could suddenly feel like, oh, I need to be more powerful to be able to control my own reality, that's where Mephisto kind of kicks in. I feel like that kind of jumps the shark a little bit, though. The reason why is I think Mephisto definitely has a goal in the MCU, but I don't think he's willing to reveal his cards in WandaVision. I feel like that's more multiverse of madness, which we know that Wanda is going to be a part of, which means a couple of things. Either one, she survives this whole ordeal and seemingly gets away, or two, she's pulled from another multiverse. And I think I'm leaning towards the first theory more than the second theory, because this doesn't quite feel like she's the one that's going to die. All right, so 2, is there another player in here? Yeah, I do. I can agree that I think it is all Wanda, but when Vision uncovered Norm, he says, oh, she's hurting us. She's hurting us. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that's Wanda. That could mean a different character, which goes back to kind of the earlier episode 1, episode 2, when we're talking about the character Agnes, which we know definitely has some sort of role in this. Agnes seemingly seems like she's under mind control, but she tends to break character, if that makes sense. she tends to kind of break character and doesn't really make a lot of sense. And Wanda thinks it's a little bit, Vision thinks it's weird, but Wanda is like, oh, don't worry about it. So it could very well be that she is played, and there's all sorts of signs, to reflect. And I really think this is the case, that she's actually playing Angela Harkness, who is basically just as powerful as Wanda, and has been an old time foe to Wanda for a very, very, very long time. Wanda eventually surpasses her, but she was practically immortal until Wanda kills her, um, and which means she's not immortal. Um, so I think she definitely has a role in this, and I think I don't know what her motives are exactly. That would likely be uncovered for the rest of the series. But but I definitely still think that Wanda is the main culprit of this. She may have been convinced by Angela, but Wanda's the one doing the rest of it. She's doing the work. Angela's getting off on whatever she's getting off on. All right, so what does this mean for the rest of the series? Why is Evan Peters there? So a couple of things. We know that all the residents have been able to be traced and tracked. I'm assuming Evan Peters is actually a part of that, unless he's actually a mole from something else. Hydra immediately comes to mind. Somehow, a certain professor could seemingly come into mind, but then the question is, well, why weren't those guys introduced beforehand? Well, that's why I don't like that theory. I do, however, have a different theory. One of the things that's kind of been discussed and kind of thought about was during some of the dialogue, they mentioned this like tank to like get back in, and it has to be protected from the titanium and a couple other things to make sure that it passes through this thing. It has to be 10,000 pounds, things like that. And they mentioned, well, it doesn't really matter because of Wanda's radiation. Okay. So does that imply that Wanda's radiation that is covering this whole town of 1,000 people has mutated some of these people? Because when Wanda has mutated some of these people to essentially have powers in some way, shape, or form, I think that's definitely possible. I think that's actually how you introduce the X-Men. Because if you recall from X-Men storylines, these are guys that basically a lot of them didn't want their own powers. And then a lot of them, really embrace their powers. And this kind of turned into this whole thing that, this kind of turned into this whole thing where they get shunned by society, which could very well happen here. I also think it's possible that the Avengers try to fix stuff, and so a certain event basically has the X-Men attacking one of the Avengers, such as I don't know, Rogue depowering Captain Marvel, and that could lead into an Avengers v X-Men thing. Is that a stretch goal for 8 years from now? Probably. But I still think you have to at least consider it. Why is he in here? Why is that version of Quicksilver in here? Was he a member of the town and was mutated to be here? Does that mean that Wanda creates the X-Men? Kind of. This would essentially be a reverse House of M, because when Wanda sees, Quicksilver for the first time, she doesn't really recognize him. And then, when but he kind of has that look and he kind of has everything else, and it's kind of weird, and it's very clear that Wanda is not in control of everything here because of character breaks and because of the children growing up so fast, which is another thing. She's had a couple of kids. It's pretty clear that these two kids is going to be, one of them's for sure Wiccan, one of them for sure is going to be Speed, but they grow up so fast. Okay. But here's the other thing. they grow up so fast, but they haven't shown powers yet. All right. And, one is like, oh, don't you guys dare grow up, too fast. Is that a manifestation? B, a power that these guys just have? Um, C, is it, I don't know. It could be a number of things. It could also be, an act from the radiation itself, which is happening incredibly fast, but maybe they found a way to kind of utilize the radiation for their own things. I don't know. That's weird. Like I can't even begin to think about that. But it can imply, because remember, they X-Men normally don't get their powers until they hit puberty. Which means once the manifestation of puberty happens, their powers suddenly come out of the woodworks. It also could be that it could already be one of the kids. Evan Peters could already be one of those kids and be that sort of weird thing. Even though that doesn't really satisfy me, because and at least House of M, the comic, Quicksilver and Magneto are involved, and they're kind of defending Wanda to avoid her from being killed until she says no more mutants. So I don't know. The final thing that I kind of picked up on is Monica Rambeau, who, by the way, is going to be playing Photon. You can clearly tell she's going to be honoring her mother's legacy, because she went into the radiation, and it's possible that the radiation, that she wasn't in there for a whole lot of time, but maybe she mutates into Photon. Very possible. She says that she has an aeronautical engineer friend that can kind of help. Okay, well, if you know the history of the character, there's only one character that could basically be introduced there. Reed Richards. Reed Richards and Monica have a huge history, starting from CM1, and determining, what exactly, fighting all sorts of different things, and being allies to each other. And it only makes more sense that maybe Reed Richards, who hasn't been a player yet, already exists in this universe, has already been here, and just hasn't really wanted to take that step to kind of do more. It's very clear to me that Reed's going to be a part of this. It's very clear to me that he's going to be a player in some shape in this. And because of that, we're now having, what does the implications of this show actually mean? I think it means that either something happened in the multiverse where we're converging multiverse, very similar to Into the Spider-Verse. It's not perfect. I don't like it. It doesn't sit on top of each other really well. It could very well be that that Wanda literally creates the X-Men. I mean, Pietro's there. What's to stop further mutation to kind of happen? And I actually really like this theory, because I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what about the first mutants and stuff like that? To be honest, I don't know. I don't really have a good answer to that. It's not going to make sense for me for Namor. It's not going to make sense for me when they eventually go down a rabbit hole to try to introduce Apocalypse. It's not going to make sense. It's not going to make sense to me if they wind up introducing Onslaught, and all the other weird characters that kind of spawn from this. But I think very clearly that the future implications of the show, for starters, is something's going to happen where this hex breaks, of course, and there's going to be lasting effects on those 1,000 people. And it may not be immediately clear in the series, unlike Quicksilver, but it may really be there. I hate this idea that it may just be a manifestation of her mind, but it's pretty clear that something's going to have to happen, and Wanda is either going to become way too powerful for anybody to try to control, or or she kind of finally has this like standoff battle with Vision, where she kind of explains everything and he's telling her to let her go and to stop having this reality, and she has to wind up killing Vision again, which again leads her to even a darker hole, which is why she could also be the antagonist of Multiverse of Madness. I like this idea of like, I like this idea that ever since Civil War, and ever since Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, that maybe not all the Avengers really want to be a part of this anymore. Maybe they don't really care to be part of this Avengers initiative anymore, and they kind of want to start doing their own things and start kind of breaking up the team a little bit. I know that may sound like that hurts for future movies, but you know, the reality is that once Tony is gone, now that Tony is gone, now that Cap has fully lived, through his old age, who becomes the leader of that team? Spider-Man, he's a kid. He's still a child. He hasn't even graduated high school yet. So you're going to put the fate of the world on a high schooler. I don't buy that. I don't see people suddenly being like, no, I know he's really helped in the past, but can he actually lead this team? And are we all willing to listen to him? Dude, I've been to Sokovia. I saw that shit drop. When a world threat comes into play, is Spider-Man going to be the leader? I know what MCU has said. I personally it's not perfect for me. As for the future of this, I think this show does introduce Fantastic Four in some way, shape, or form. And I do think it introduces X-Men, and I think you're going to lead down a path where Fantastic Four gets really interested into discovering why this radiation kind of happened, or the radiation makes a Fantastic Four, or the radiation is sent into space, and for some odd reason they decide to go up into space to see what's up with this radiation, and it turns them into the Fantastic Four, or a million other possibilities. But I think this show is kind of showing the direction of what Phase 4 and Phase 5 and possibly even Phase 6, whatever Phase 6 even begins to look like, because these MCU movies are not stopping. That's all I got. That's all I'm really willing to discuss here, and we're going to see where everything goes. So follow us, Back to the Classics. You can find the channel for real at back where this video is going to be posted. And of course, we always have new shows. Cinema Rehab drops on Tuesdays. My show drops on Thursday. This is just going to drop whenever, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. That's all I got. Thanks for watching.